Hey everybody, I'm back. Hope you had a really good spring break. Ready to read to you some more by the Great Horn Spoon. Today is chapter 8 and it's Saved by a Whisker. Here's the picture that we're seeing to start off this chapter. That's supposed to be the skyline of San Francisco, and that's supposed to be the wharf of San Francisco. In his pea jacket and stocking cap, Jack felt 14 years old at least. Maybe 15. He stood on the bow of the whaleboat and watched the long wharf come closer. They bumped against boat stairs and Jack was the first out. His heart raced with excitement of the moment. They had arrived and he was ready to start his digging. "Not so fast, Master Jack," said Praiseworthy. "Don't you forget your pick and shovel. And don't start digging up the streets," laughed Mountain Jim. "Folks might not appreciate that here in San Francisco." A hilltop telegraph had signaled the arrival of the sidewheeler, and now it seemed as if all of San Francisco had turned out to greet them. The wharf was alive with men and women and children, not to mention dogs and mules and chickens. Seagulls flocked in the air like confetti. Weighted down by their belongings, Praiseworthy and Jack started along the wharf. There were barrels and boxes piled everywhere. Peddlers and hawkers and hotel runners mixed through the crowd and shouted at all the newcomers. "Welcome, boys! Welcome to the fastest growing city in the world!" someone shouted at them. "Flannel shirts for sale! Red flannel shirts, gents! They don't show the dirt on 'em! Try a nice hotel, the cleanest hotel in town. Horn spoons! You're going to need those horn spoons if you're going to the diggings, carved from genuine ox horn. Stay at the Parker House. There's none better," someone else shouted. The wharf seemed a mile long and the noisiest place on earth. Jack was dazzled by all that he saw. Tattooed islanders and East Indian sailors and silent Chinese with pigtails dangling behind them like black chains. There were Mexicans moving about to the jingle of their heavy silver spurs, and Chileans in long serapes. There were mule skinners and businessmen. There were miners in jackboots. There were red flannel shirts everywhere, with the mud of the diggings still in their beards. The city rang to the sound of hammers, and buildings were going up everywhere, and a sand dredger was pounding the air. Men stood in the doorways of the shops, ringing their bells for everyone to come see. So there they are in town. You can see right here, Jack and Praiseworthy. Auction going on. Fresh eggs just arrived from Panama. Step inside, gents. Cherts and chewing tobacco. Onions at auction. 50 bushels just come in from the Sandwich Islands. Also, pills and castor oil and carpet checks. Jack gazed around at the street vendors and all the wonders there were to be seen. There was the smell of mutton from the chop houses and the sizzle of hot grease from the oyster shops. Suddenly, Mountain Jim stopped short. "Billy be hanged," he said, lifting his nose to the air. "Smell that, boys?" Praiseworthy nodded his head. "It's strong enough to knock a man down," he said. "Makes your mouth water, don't it?" "Not exactly," said Jack, trying not to breathe. "It's bear meat. Real California home-cooking bear meat. Good luck in those diggings, boys. I gotta follow my nose to that bear meat," said Mountain Jim. Following up the scent like a bloodhound, Mountain Jim crossed the street and turned into a restaurant. Before long, Mr. Azaria Jones dropped away, unable to resist the lure of the auction shops another moment. Praiseworthy and Jack continued along the boardwalk, which was hammered together mostly out of barrel staves, and reached the United States Hotel. Captain Swain had recommended that hotel. "A fine room, if you please," Praiseworthy had said to the hotel clerk, "and I think a tub bath would be in order." "Very good, sir," said the clerk. He was a bald-headed man with thin strands of hair combed sideways over the top of his head, from ear to ear. "That'll be $10 each." "What?" said Praiseworthy, scowling. "We don't want to bathe in champagne. Just regular water will do." "Champagne be cheaper, gents. Water is $1 a bucket. Unless you want to wait until next November when prices come down when it rains." "We'll wait," said Praiseworthy with decision. In this part of the world, he thought a man had to strike it rich just to keep his neck clean. He signed the register, and Jack gazed at the bearded miner pacing back and forth across the lobby floor. He wore a floppy hat, and chestnut hair tumbled out on all sides like mattress stuffing coming out and coming loose. He kept glancing at the loud wall clock as if every advancing second might be his last. Jack couldn't take his eyes off of that man. Tucked in his wide leather belt was a revolver, a horn spoon, and a soft buckskin bag. Gold dust, thought Jack. He must have gotten it from the mines. Ruination, the miner said to himself. Ruination! Praiseworthy blotted the register. How, he asked the clerk, do we go to the mines? Well, the riverboat leaves every afternoon at 4 o'clock from the Long Wharf. Fare to Sacramento City is $25. There you make your way to the diggings by stage and muleback or foot. Now remember, everybody, there was no digging for the gold rush in San Francisco. You had to go to Gold Country. Gold Country is up by Placerville. So they're in San Francisco, but they still have to get a boat to Sacramento so that they can then go to the gold diggings farther up in the mountains. Okay. Where was I? Let's see. Jack shot a glance at Praiseworthy. $25 each to do that. Why, they didn't have that much money, but the butler didn't so much as even raise an eyebrow. We'll be taking that boat tomorrow, he told the clerk. Ruination! Cried the miner again. Come along, Master Jack, said Praiseworthy. The walls of their room were lined with blood-red calico, and there was a Chinese matting on the plank floor. The window looked out on the shipping in the bay, the masts as thick as pine forests. There was only gold ships, but Navy frigates and Chinese junks, and even going back and forth looked longboats. But Jack wasn't interested in the view out the window. $50 just to get to Sacramento City? He said. We're going to have to walk there, Praiseworthy. Good exercise, no doubt, but we haven't time to walk that far, Master Jack. Praiseworthy gazed out at the distant hills across the bay. Sacramento City was more than 100 miles upriver. He had heard this, and the diggings in the foothills beyond that. Let me see. It took us 5 months to get this far, and it will take us another 5 months to get home, he said. If we were to keep your Aunt Arabella from being sold out, we have about 2 months to make our fortune. 2 months to fill our pockets with nuggets. Jack found himself pacing back and forth like the miner in the lobby below. Ruination, Jack said to himself. We've come all this way, and now we're not even closer to the gold. Nonsense, said Praiseworthy. There was a pitcher half filled with water on the chest, and he poured a small amount into the washpan. We'll be on tomorrow's riverboat. I promise you that, Master Jack. Now, then, I suggest that we wash up as best we can in this little bit of water. Wash? Jack thought. There wasn't time to do any washing. How are we going to pay the fare? He said. Let me see. We have $38 left. That's a start, isn't it? Of course, we'll have our room and meals to pay for, but I detect one thing in the air. It's opportunity. The sooner you wash up, Master Jack, the sooner we'll be able to tend to our financial dilemma. Your Aunt Arabella wouldn't allow you abroad on the streets with dirty ears and sea salt in your eyebrows, would she? And don't forget to use some soap. Ruination, Jack said to himself, muttering again. He might as well be home in Boston at this point. They washed and changed into fresh clothes, and Praiseworthy gathered up his white linen shirts. They needed a good starching and ironing. Praiseworthy had noticed a laundry sign a few doors from the hotel. It wouldn't do, he told himself, to see Master Jack turn into a ragamuffin. No, indeed, Miss Arabella would never forgive me for that. When they returned to the lobby, the shaggy miner was still there, pacing back and forth, muttering to himself in his dusty beard. He glanced at Jack in a dark, sudden glance, and then the butler and the boy went out into the street. But as they ambled along the boardwalk, Jack began to realize that the miner was now following them. Or it seemed for a moment that he was. Praiseworthy turned into the laundry, a mere wooden framework tacked with canvas, and set his bundle of shirts down on the counter. How soon may we have these back, sir? Asked the butler. Very fast service, said the laundryman. His pigtail bobbed as he bowed down. How fast? Said Praiseworthy. 3 months, unless there's a typhoon. 3 months? Typhoon? The man was mad, Praiseworthy thought, or perhaps it was the entire city. We fully intend to leave on the 4 o'clock riverboat tomorrow. Not possible, said the Chinese man, bowing and slipping his hands into his flowing sleeves. We send laundry to China. It comes back 3-4 months, all wash, starch, iron, unless there's a typhoon. Take longer. No one do laundry here. Everything sky high. Cheaper to send to China. Praiseworthy picked up the bundle of shirts and gave Jack a look of modest defeat. Since we've managed without baths, I dare say that we can do without starched shirts, so come along, Master Jack. They had hardly gone half a block when Jack saw the miner in the floppy hat once again behind them. The black pistol in his belt suddenly looked even larger. But Jack said nothing. The miner could want nothing of them, nothing at all. He was still at their heels when the butler and the boy crossed the street. Now Jack was beginning to feel, and I'll show you this as I read, was beginning to feel anxious, a little scared even. Finally, he looked up at Praiseworthy. He's following us. Who's following us? Said the butler. That miner from the hotel. Stuff and nonsense, said Praiseworthy. The streets are free for everyone. But he is following us, Praiseworthy. Nothing to fear in broad daylight, Master Jack. They continued along the sandy plaza, still looking for opportunity, and the miner marched right behind them. Must be another madman, said Praiseworthy, turning. He stopped and the miner stopped, and they stood face to face. Sir, said the butler, are you following us? Ruination, I sure am, he said. Well, I'll thank you to go on your way, sir. No offense, gents, the miner said. Been on the verge of breaking on your conversation, but it didn't seem courteous. It was hard to see his mouth for the fullness of his beard. They call me Quartz Jackson, and I just come in from the diggings. My fiancé's due here on the stage any minute, coming up from the capital of Monterey. We ain't never even met, but we been writing lots of letters, and that's just it. Well, what's just it? Said Praiseworthy. We're supposed to be getting married, but ruination! When she takes a look at me and all that's going on here, I think I'm part grizzly bear and she won't want to marry me. He whipped his floppy hat off of his head, and his dusty hair fell out on all sides. She'll be getting right back on that stagecoach for Monterey. But shucks, I ain't had a bad-looking gent least a days. I wasn't when I was in the diggings. I just might grow over, you might say. Well, I've been tramping every street up and down looking for a barber, and they all have lit out for the mines. There is no one to cut my hair. Don't seem to be anyone left here but Cheap Johns. Cheap Johns, said Praiseworthy. Those are auctioneers, he said. Anyways, that's why I couldn't help staring at that lad here. Me? Said Jack. Why, that yellow hair of yours looks fresh from the barber shop, all cut and trimmed. I figured you must have flushed out a barber, and maybe you'd do Quartz Jackson a favor by lending that barber to me. So again, he's supposed to be getting married to a lady coming on a stagecoach that he's never met before, and look at him. Jack had feared the miner for a moment. He couldn't help smiling at him now, though. He liked the man. No, sir, he said. I didn't go to a barber, unless you mean Praiseworthy here. Praiseworthy? At your service, said the butler. It's true that I've been cutting Master Jack's hair, but only out of necessity. The miner's face, which could be seen, what looked of it, broke out into a very sunny smile. I'd be much obliged if you barber me up, Mr. Praiseworthy. Name your price, any price. But I'm not a barber, sir. I'm a butler. A what? I couldn't accept any money for merely, well now, that's mighty white of you. Tell you what I'll do. I'll let you have the hair that you cut off of me. Praiseworthy and Jack looked at each other. The man was some sort of lunatic after all. What earthly use did they have for a man's hair that they'd cut off? But it seemed wise just to humor him, and Praiseworthy said, I'll be glad to help you with your hour of need, sir. Now consider it a modest wedding present. 20 minutes later, the miner was seated on a nail keg in the corner of the hotel porch, and Praiseworthy was snipping away with his shears. Quartz Jackson insisted that every lock he caught every lot be caught as it fell. Jack kept busy holding a washpan under Praiseworthy's busy scissors. It worried him that time was wasting and there was yet to be making boat fare. But he knew it would have been impossible for Praiseworthy to turn his back on a gentleman in distress, even a particular miner like Mr. Quartz Jackson. "I ain't town grown through," said the miner. "Must be 4,000 folks here in this place. You just figuring on going to the diggings?" "We are," said Praiseworthy. "Well, I come from Hangtown. The boys have been locating a good lot of color up in Hangtown." That means gold. "Color?" "Yeah, the yeller stuff. The gold. You get up to that Hangtown way, tell 'em your friend Quartz Jackson sent you. Tell 'em I'll be coming home with my bride in a couple of weeks. Sure is nice of you to shear me this way. Would you mind trimming my beard up too while you're at it? It's always itching me, and I can hardly find my mouth with I spit it. Jack, young Jack, a little bit of sideburn is getting in the way of the breeze. Would you mind having me cut off some too?" So he wants his hair cut, his beard cut, and his sideburns cut. "Yes, sir," said Jack, catching the locks of hair. Quartz Jackson's face began to appear, snip by snip, like a statue being chipped out of stone. When Praiseworthy had finished, the miner turned to look at himself in the hotel window pane, and he almost jumped out of his jack boots. "By the great horn spoon!" he cried. "Is that me in that window?" Quartz Jackson was obviously pleased with his haircut. "Why, I'd forgot that I was so young looking," he said. Quartz Jackson was a fine-looking gent at that. Jack thought about this. He had good teeth and an easy smile. Except for his revolver, his horn spoon, and his red flannel shirt, he hardly seemed even the same man. But what did he expect them to do with all his hair cuttings? Stuff a mattress? "Your fiancé will be very pleased with you," smiled Praiseworthy. "Our congratulations on your forthcoming marriage, sir." "Much obliged, Praiseworthy," said Quartz Jackson. "You saved me from certain ruination. At least I can do is learn you how to work a gold pan. Water boy, you there, fetch us a bucket of dew over there." The miner paid for the water by taking a pinch of his fine gold dust from his buckskin pouch. Jack was eager to get the hang of mining, and Quartz Jackson, particular or not, was clearly an expert at it. "Now give me that washpan, Jack, young Jack," he said. Jack handed over the tin pan, piled high with the chestnut whiskers and the trimmings from the hair. The miner wet them down in fresh water and began to swish around the pan. "Gold's heavy," he explained. "Nothing heavier. Even the yeller dust sinks to the bottom if you keep working the pan, like this, round and round." He then handed the washpan to Jack and taught him the motion. The water turned brown from the dirt and the mud and had gathered in Quartz Jackson's whiskers and his hair. And finally he poured off everything but a thin residue at the bottom of that pan. Jack's eyes opened wide like blossoms. "Gold dust. Why, looky there," the miner roared with laughter. "The boy's panned himself some color. I figure scratch enough to pay dirt in my beard and essay out more than 15 an ounce. Since I give you the whiskers and all, the gold is yours." Jack had never been more excited in that moment in his life. The grains of dust sparkled like golden fire, and there was even a big flake or two. Half an hour later, while Quartz Jackson was having a $10 tub bath, Praiseworthy and Jack were plucking opportunity from the air. They put up the sign that said, "Free haircuts." So, it says minors only. So if you followed what I just read, all that gold dust was in Quartz Jackson's beard and it was in his hair, and they mined it in the gold pan and used the water to flush it out. And at the bottom of the pan, when the hair was gone, there was gold dust. So now their opportunity is to cut Miner's hair to get the gold dust. And that's the end of that chapter. So, Praiseworthy and Jack have their opportunity to now make it to the gold fields, going up to the Sacramento River, up to Sacramento City at that time, to be able then to go from Sacramento City up into Hangtown, which is Placerville, to start doing their digging. all by cutting guys' hair that have come back from the gold fields to get that gold dust. All right. I hope you enjoyed that chapter. I miss you all. I hope you're doing well. Till next time.